And Jayaji would also probably appreciate the fact that we have.
Very good, very good. He's saying all the whole house.
I heard it, sir, but what I wanted to say is, Jayaji, because the school children who are here, I'm so touched by the fact that they are here to observe what we are discussing. And I'm sure, yes, all the members would feel happy about the presence of the future generations of India here. These are not words of any muscular nationalism. These are truly the words of a Prime Minister who wants to stand next to his scientists, even at the time of disappointment, as much as the time of success. To decry this and to say, oh, you stop your muscular nationalism, is a bit of a perversion, which I think somebody from Jairam Ramesh's experience, I wouldn't expect. And this is not the first time. When in 2014, ISRO had by that time launched 104 satellites at one go. Prime Minister Modi was one of the first one to say, India salutes all the scientists. It was in his Twitter handle. So here again, a woman scientist has contributed in the Aditya L1. Nigar Shaji is a woman scientist who is actually behind this Aditya mission. This success of Chandrayaan 3 is certainly going to have a very big impact on India's industrial and technological ecosystem. It's going to directly, of course, affect positively the satellite systems area, telecommunications area, and there are very many other related fields, all of which will benefit from it. Although in 1975, we needed the Soviet Union's help to launch our Aryabhatta, a space station to go into the space for the first time from India, today, as of July 23, our record is such that we've already launched 431 foreign satellites for other countries. That is, 34 different countries have utilized ISRO's facility and their knowledge systems to launch their satellites. And I'm just recalling in 1975, our Aryabhatta being launched by Soviet Union for us today, but we are in a position to launch 34 different countries' satellites, but totaling to 431. What a spectacular journey this is for ISRO. So, Chandrayaan 3, sir, also stood out, in my observation, also stood out for one particular achievement, which has a blend of innovation, has a blend of how technology and innovation working together can work for global achievements and sustainability. I remember also seeing a lot of comments which said, oh, but this is no good, it has taken this many number of days to reach there. Did it require that many number of days? Can it not be done lesser in lesser number of days? Because quoting some other countries, they said they reached the moon in 20 days, whereas you took 45 days and so on. But the secret behind that, the fact behind that, is the innovative way in which ISRO has handled it. In that, they chose a path to reach the moon, which was not otherwise thought of, but thought only because due to the route selection, and I'm using very pedestrian language here, I'm conscious of that, using such a route selection, ISRO made it possible to do it cost effectively, because the gravitational pulls, any magnetic fields which come in the way, I'm sorry, again a pedestrian language, can exhaust more fuel. But the way in which ISRO decided to take this Chandrayaan 3 was chosen not for a racing expedition. I'll have to reach there faster than somebody else, but I have to reach there in a cost-effective manner using lesser fuel and therefore serve the purpose of sustainability. Space research also has to be sustainable, because otherwise it becomes too expensive and cannot be afforded at all. So, innovation intertwined with sustainability, particularly in the realm of space, is what ISRO has achieved by choosing the route with which it reached the south pole of the moon. Now, the lander that is there was named Vikram Probe. Obviously, the name reminds us of Vikram Sarabhai, who set up the first rocket launching station, which we are now using repeatedly. Nobody ever in India can forget the contribution that Vikram Sarabhai or Homi Bhabha did. Of course, Homi then moved over to the Atomic Energy Commission, which was carved out of the then body ISRO. So, Vikram Probe did something spectacular again. Having reached the South Pole, for the first time, the density and the temperature of the moon's ionosphere has been recorded. Several people went to the moon earlier, landed in the moon earlier, but we did the first thing of landing in the South Pole. But for the first time again, the moon's ionosphere and its density and the temperature there has been recorded by our Vikram probe. Interestingly, from the probe, the rover which is moving slowly on the surface of the moon, the Pragyan rover, in its exploration has unearthed groundbreaking discoveries, sir. The presence of sulfur, for instance, in the lunar south pole has come as a very big surprise to the scientific community. So, I'm happy to say Chandrayaan-3 landing in the south pole for the first time does not just stop there, it has also created a lot more record on its own. Just going back, Chandrayaan-2 also would have achieved, but for the last minute tragic failure, but ISRO showcased to the world that it shall not be deterred by that failure. It would learn lessons. Every strand of the errors have been identified, lessons learned, and today we see that the ISRO has corrected itself to the extent that very many little errors which had crept in earlier had been removed and better solutions have been offered than what had been given in Chandrayaan-2 itself. No wonder that the chief, S. Somanath, has been received by the Indian common citizen everywhere. When he went into a flight, people stood up and clapped for him. This is the kind of respect Indians have, we our people have, for such great achieving scientists of this country. Nobody ever forgets them. And today, ISRO and ISRO scientists are all very recognized by people of India. And in the process, I'll later delve into this point, they are people who have studied from tier 2, tier 3 colleges, gone into Indian Institute of Sciences and many such institutions, but they are there sitting and contributing for the future development of India and also sharing their knowledge with the entire space community all over the world. Now, if I spoke about Chandrayaan-2, sir, I'll also take this opportunity to say about Chandrayaan-1, which was launched in 2008. Even that was a wonderful, sir.
Honorable members, what a sight. Look at the galleries. Look at the galleries. Jayaji, look at the galleries. All your gender. And you are iconic to all of them. And at a time when the Honorable Finance Minister is on legs. And this has happened right from the beginning. But that it would happen so continually is unimaginable, is spectacular. My tribute to this great power which is being unleashed in India to change it for the better and to take it to 2047 gloriously. Honorable Finance Minister.
Thank you very much, sir. So I'll take this opportunity which you've given me by highlighting the women and girls in the gallery. Equally impressive, sir, and I'm sure you would have noticed it as well. And Jayaji would also probably appreciate the fact that we have.
Very good, very good. He's saying all the whole house.
I heard it, sir, but what I wanted to say is, Jayaji, because the school children who are here, I'm so touched by the fact that they are here to observe what we are discussing. And I'm sure, yes, all the members would feel happy about the presence of the future generations of India here.
She started her first movie
Oh, okay.
as a school child.
Honorable Leader of the House reminds me that I'm not wrong in mentioning Honorable Jaya ji's name, because she apparently acted as a school child.
Yes.
In a student with uniform in a film.
I
which
was
became a hit.
reflecting, honorable members, on that memorable contribution as a great artist and elevating her to iconic status, which she has sustained all throughout. Honorable Finance.
Appreciations, Jayaji. Sir, I did mention about Chandrayaan 2 and wanted to move over to briefly talk about Chandrayaan 1 as well. But before I do talk about Chandrayaan 1, I want to remind myself and also place it before the honorable members in this house that on probably 7th September 2019, midnight, Governor of West Bengal, the then Governor of West Bengal, and now Vice President of India, witnessed that landing, which of course had a problem, but along with hundreds of school children in the science city of Kolkata. And today, you are reminding us about the school children who are here to listen to this debate on the Chandrayaan 3's success. So Chandrayaan 1, sir, if I can just go one step backward, was also a very successful mission. 2008, when it was launched, it discovered the presence of water on the moon's surface, and it also provided a lot of insights into the lunar geology. So obviously, each one time that ISRO had attempted to do, they have come out with extraordinary contributions to the space science, and that is now actually being used by the space community, scientist community from all over the world. And repeatedly, when we talk about ISRO, I will definitely recollect that the founders of ISRO, as I named them earlier, Vikram Sarabhai or Homi Bhabha, had all remembered that this contribution or this investment in space is an investment in future, and that it will be done for the sake of development and also for the sake of humanity. That spirit continues even today, sir. I would want to highlight that. And when I do that, it is purposely because I want to bring to the context that continuously in India, ISRO has received that kind of a support from all communities, ordinary citizens, students, children, scientific community, and from the government of the day. The kind of support that ISRO has received is something which all of us are proud of, and we'll continue doing that. Now, but of course, much before I go into talking many more things, a theme which I want to mention here, and I would probably respond to it repeatedly, is a comment which Jairam Ramesh had made, honorable members not here, but he has made in the morning about, muscular nationalism. You leave it to the scientists. Sir, yes. And I also recall, I wasn't in the house, but I've seen it subsequently, that former President APJ Abdul Kalam had referred to Professor Satish Dhawan, and said leadership should be like that, where once when a mission failed, he had said not to worry at all. Leave it there. I take the full responsibility as the head. But when the next year it was corrected and they achieved success, Professor Satish Dhawan had told our former president, then scientist, APJ Abdul Kalam, the success is due to your team and the success is to you, and as a true leader, gave the credit to the team. Absolutely. Whoever would deny the scientists their contribution. But it doesn't mean that if the Prime Minister of the country stands next to a scientist or a team of scientists who worked for something, and when there is unfortunately a failure or a disappointment, to stand by them and say, don't you worry, you will be doing better the next time. And therefore I read this quote. Honorable Prime Minister stood next to Professor Sivan, the scientist, during the launch of Chandrayaan-2, which in the last minute, unfortunately, broke all our hearts and disappointed all of them as much as the scientific community when it just couldn't land. Standing next to him, who had tears in his eyes, Mr. Sivan had tears in his eyes, Prime Minister had said, last night, when he stood with him, I understood your frame of mind. The look in your eyes said a lot. That is why I did not stay here for long. We might not have reached the lunar surface as planned. You came as close as you could, stay steady and look ahead. We are full of confidence when it comes to our space program. The best is yet to come, unquote. These are not words of any muscular nationalism. These are truly the words of a Prime Minister who wants to stand next to his scientists, even at the time of disappointment, as much as the time of success. So to decry this and to say, oh, you stop your muscular nationalism, is a bit of a perversion, which I think somebody from Jairam Ramesh's experience, I wouldn't expect. And this is not the first time. When in 2014, ISRO had by that time launched 104 satellites at one go. Prime Minister Modi was one of the first ones to say, India salutes all the scientists. It was in his Twitter handle. It is there even now. So scientists are being given the due credit, and we shall continue to give due credit. Every government has done it. We also do it. But when we do it, because it's Prime Minister Modi, please don't give any other attributes which are not true. So I'll, for a minute, dwell again on the cost of the mission. And that's one of the interesting facts about Chandrayaan-2, as much as the one earlier also, about the Mangalyaan. One of the most interesting factors that Chandrayaan-3 mission costed only around $75 million US, approximately 615 crores. These are not final figures because that will have to be finalized through the department, finally tying up every expenditure, approximately 615 crores. Then again, oft-repeated comparisons. Our Chandrayaan-3 commanded a lesser budget when compared to some of the movies which are made on space itself. You're making movies on space because we understand better, we want to know better, our future generation should know what it means, and therefore interesting films are made. But those films costed more than actually just Chandrayaan-3. I'll give you a random selection of film names and their cost. Interstellar costed $165 million. Passengers costed $110 million. The Martian, $108 million. Gravity, $100 million. And Chandrayaan, $75 million. As I said earlier, sir, innovative cost-cutting methods are the reason why it took a few days more, but the gravitational pull and also the magnetic fields which drag the satellite and therefore exhaust the fuel, in my pedestrian language that is. I'm sure there are some scientists who will be here who will sneer at my language, but simply put, that's the reason why they chose the track with which they could reach. Even if it takes a few more days, it costed them less. So I'll come to the point that increasingly India's space programs are becoming Atmanirbhar. And the immense potential of homegrown industries and their technologies are now increasingly helping our expeditions to the space. Chandrayaan-3 benefited from this. I would like to highlight where these kind of Atmanirbhar Bharat has come to interplay with the space program. India actually through the Chandrayaan-3 has displayed and showcased its capability to design, to develop, and to manufacture high-end equipments which are so required, but all domestically. Now, leading companies like Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, HAL, which provided significant mechanical hardware, and BHEL, the Bharat Heavy Electrical Limited, contributed with their titanium tanks, which was so crucial and actually helped in cutting cost as well, but a very innovative way in which we could do it. Sir, numerous private Indian firms have contributed to this, particularly in the realms of mechanical and electronic fabrication. For a minute, I want to quote Vikram Sarabhai again. He says, if we are to play a meaningful role naturally and in the Committee of Nations, with the, we must be second to none in the application of advanced technologies, unquote. Now, these advanced technologies are not just coming from HAL and BHEL. They sure are coming from HAL and BHEL, but private players today are giving these high-end technologies, and they have made it an immense contribution to the efficiencies which are now getting recorded. The kind of equipments which we see in the Chandrayaan-3 are state-of-the-art scientific instruments which are being used, all of them which are developed in India. They include seismometer, Langmuir probe instruments, thermal probe instruments, both X-ray and laser-based spectrometers. All of them have been built in India. So, I want to underline here, sir, that scientific temper, scientific achievements are absolutely praiseworthy in ISRO. But policy has also been doing a lot of rigorous changes, which has now come to help private participation in the space sector. I remember during Atmanirbhar announcements, and subsequently in the budget of 21-22, we had announced a strategic disinvestment policy, particularly for central public sector enterprises, in which we said in the strategic areas, a minimum presence of the government will be there, will continue to be there. We are not going to shut every unit there, not at all. But there will not be any area in India which will not be available for private sector. That is, no area will be shut for private sector, and that policy actually has helped in getting the private sector to enter into space area. And as a result, today, you have innovative ideas working together with the ISRO, and that has made a lot of difference. India actually ranks 5th among countries for equity investments in space in the past decade. And that is consistently because the policy has been made more and more favorable. And as a result, we are improving in getting equity funding for the private sector which wants to involve itself in space. But even today, it is only 3% of all the money which goes into the space arena globally. We need to have more private funding coming, private equity coming for those private companies which want to do innovative work in the space area. Sir, you have rightly given the tone of women even at the beginning of my intervention. I would like to say how Chandrayaan 3, the landing spot in the moon, has been named Shiv Shakti. Shiv Shakti obviously denotes the Ardhanarishwara principle, though. And therefore, both Shiva and Shakti give the energy and the action. Therefore, I want to say it is a tribute to the women scientists who worked in that mission. Indian women scientists have contributed immensely to the space program. Women scientists, and I quote the Prime Minister here, women scientists of this mission have played a crucial role in ensuring its success. Without their contribution, this achievement was not just possible. They will inspire generations to come, unquote. Sir, slightly over 100 women staff have played a direct significant role in conceptualizing, designing, realizing, testing, and executing Chandrayaan 3. Over 100 women staff, inclusive of scientists. The huge participation of women shows that the scientific empowerment of women has helped, and the glass ceiling has actually been broken in ISRO for quite some time now. I'm not saying it happened yesterday, but for quite some time now. And as a result, the empowerment of women scientists, and having broken the glass ceiling, no doubt, metaphorically, they're reaching to the space. This empowerment of women scientists clearly shows that in India, there is enough opportunity and more for women, provided they're given access, given opportunity. And that is why, in this context, I like to place it on the table here, that the Nari Vandan Adhiniyam, which is being introduced in the Lok Sabha, is necessarily an instrument through which we hope the political empowerment also can be done, just as the scientific empowerment has been happening in ISRO. If that kind of access is given to women, opportunity is given to women, they can perform as well as our scientists are performing in ISRO itself in the political arena. And I'm sure when the bill comes to the Rajya Sabha, it will have a smooth passage. I'm sure all parties, all members would kindly cooperate to have that cleared. So I'd like to take, because we are talking about Chandrayaan 3, I'd like to highlight the names of those women scientists who have contributed to Chandrayaan 3. Among many others, I said more than 100 women staff, but I'm naming some of them here. Srimati Kalpana Kalahasti, Dr. Ritu Karidal Srivastava, who's known as the Rocket Women of India, Srimati Vanita Muttaya, Srimati Nandini Harinath, Srimati Anuradha TK, Srimati Maunmita Datta, and Srimati VR Lalitambika. So these are scientists who have come from various parts of this country, studied in institutions which are probably in tier 2 to tier 3 institutions, but sheer wanting to perform with excellence has moved them to do many things on reaching ISRO and today contributing towards the launch of Chandrayaan 3. So if Chandrayaan 3 was a great success, there are other cosmic endeavors by the ISRO, which is launching Aditya L1, which is a space-based observatory dedicated to studying the sun. And here again, the innovative thought of the ISRO has played an important function. Its primary function is, of course, to monitor the solar corona while simultaneously conducting direct observations of the solar wind at the point where it will be located. And that point, I think, is called Sun-Earth Lagrangian point, a point where it could stay without having to consume too much fuel because it's such a position that it can help in observing sun without any obstruction in between. So the Sun-Earth Lagrangian point, which is about 1.5 million kilometers away from the Earth going towards the sun, is a very important mission. A significant feature of this one is that it's got 7 payloads, which include the visible emission line coronagraph, which, like I said earlier, Chandrayaan, BHEL, HAL have contributed. In this case, the Indian Institute of Astrophysics, which is located in Bangalore, has contributed in this particular visible emission line coronagraph, which is going to be very important an instrument which is going to be observing the sun. So Aditya 1, Aditya L1, which was launched from Sriharikota by ISRO on the 2nd of September 2023, is one of those very important observatory for the sun, which India will be doing. There are 3 other countries which again have done this before, but India's now achieved it. So here again, a woman scientist has contributed in the Aditya L1. Nigar Shaji is a woman scientist who's actually behind this Aditya mission. So now I'll come for the last bits. Before I conclude, I just want to highlight a few points about how we see the future of space and ISRO in India. I just want to highlight the point that we shall continue the spirit of Vikram Sarabhai, in that achievements by ISRO shall be for the mankind, achievements by ISRO shall be for development, and achievements will be for sharing with all. With that, actually, that's where the Prime Minister said when he looked at Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, G20 and so on, India will continue to explore, learn and share for the betterment of all humankind. So this is what the Prime Minister said. And this is what was the appreciation also given to the scientists. And again, standing by the scientists. Now I have my friend, Honorable Member Jairam Ramesh. The point that muscular nationalism doesn't play here, stand next to the scientists at the time of achievement and also during disappointments. So that is a point I like to highlight, sir. More importantly, sir, it's important in June 2023, when Prime Minister visited the United States of America, we signed an accord, the Artemis Accord. Very important, sir, in that India also will be one of those 27 countries which have signed this accord, and which is a multilateral space initiative led by US, in which one of the objectives is to send humans back to the moon through an international space station. And we shall be happily party to that. And in this context, sir, I would want to pick up on something which a former NASA Associate Administrator observed. His name is Mike Gold. He was a former Associate Administrator in the NASA. He was behind drafting and shepherding Artemis Accord. So it is important to understand what his perspectives were when India joined this accord. I quote him, sir, saying, India will not only fill the void, this is Mike Gold saying, who's been a NASA Associate Administrator once earlier, who drafted and also shepherded this Artemis Accord. He says, and I quote, India will not only fill the void that Russia is leaving, but will far exceed it. The capabilities of India to engage, to innovate, to support a more robust industry, particularly in the commercial space, is going to far outstrip anything that Russia had ever been able to do, unquote. So he also says, India was a sleeping giant in the space world, but that is awakening now. Already, he says, the country has done so much with so little. Again, that frugality with which our scientists are working has been observed by the associate administrator, former associate administrator of NASA. Sir, I believe one of the honorable members in the morning while talking said, probably it's Honorable Member Jawahar Sirkar, who said, bureaucracy now should be off science. ISRO should be devoid of bureaucratic influence. Now, it's not me, it's not anybody from India, but I'd like to again recall the words of former NASA Associate Administrator Mike Gold. He says, India's bureaucratic reforms in its space efforts are helping the country move faster in that sector. So, bureaucracy is not being obstructive. They are actually, the reforms are helping him to move faster. So, moving faster is not being an obstruction. So, we need to understand these reforms are taking place so that this kind of an approach where you are able to do decisions, take decisions in time is facilitating the bureaucracy. The National Science Foundation, sir, is not headed. I'm sure the minister was here, he spoke about it in the morning. National Science Foundation, with huge funds given for them to decide where that should be deployed, is headed by a scientist, Dr. Sood, if I'm right. He heads it. No bureaucrat, no former IAS is sitting there. It is a scientist who is dealing with it. So I would like to highlight this, saying these reforms, therefore, will be transformative not just for India, but also for the US and the commercial space sector as a whole, is the observation we've heard from the former NASA associate administrator. So finally, we have, I think, the current government's policies have helped the power of youth, power of scientific community, and power of Indian startups all together are helping today's ISRO. I'm not taking more time, sir, in case you want me to conclude. There are now over 140 plus registered space tech startups, all of whom are doing brilliant work as a continuation of the policy which I said, Atmanirbhar Bharat 2021-22 budget, and now you have Indian Space Policy 2023 which has come out, and that is going to, it seeks to institutionalize the private sector participation in space sector, the establishment of InSpace, which is the Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center, is also facilitating the usage of ISRO by private entities.